and welcome back to Archives Live. My name is Libby, and I'm the digital storytelling intern here at the library, and I'm with you today with OSU's head of archives, David Peters. We thought it would be interesting this month to talk about time capsules, specifically here at OSU, especially in light of homecoming celebrations taking place at the end of this month. Time capsules are a way for people to preserve their memories and significant items for future generations to ponder over. I'm going to start this live by asking you all at home, what would you put in a time capsule here on campus for students to open in 50 years? Or if it was to be opened in 100 years, would that change what you put in it? Let's take a dive into the past by first examining what has been preserved for us in our Secrets of the Century time capsule. So David, we have some pictures here today.
Right.
To start us out, I was wondering if you could kind of explain what's going on in these pictures and talk about what was going on at OSU when this project was being put together.
Okay, so they started working on the project actually in the late 1930s. It took them a little while. But this first picture here is from 1941, December. And what they're doing is preparing to put all of the material they've collected into the container you see behind us. So that's the larger container behind them. And then they have the smaller box, the Secrets of the Century box, where people put individual notes in it. And so they're planning on how they're going to put all this stuff in there. I don't know if you can see there's a record album. They've got a variety of things that are going into the container. And so the man holding the Secrets of the Century, that's Dean McElroy, a later served dean of veterinary medicine, but he was dean of students, dean of men, for a number of years. And so here they are preparing to plan on putting things into the box. And then this next picture, it's where they had a banquet. I believe it was December 8th or 9th. It was early in December. That is President Henry Bennett on the right, and then Lieutenant Governor Barry, who was an OAMC graduate, on the left, and they're getting ready to put their Secrets of the Century. So these are little notes that they wrote, and they're putting them in the box then to be preserved. And then this is in 1990. Originally they had planned for the container to be opened in 1991, but by 1990 we were celebrating our centennial year, and so they opened it actually a little bit early. But here they are. They opened up the container. It was right here in the library in the south foyer there. And they're pulling the Secrets of the Century box out of the container. And that is B.B. Chapman on the left, who was instrumental in developing the packet. And then Heather Lloyd, who was the head of the Archives and Special Collections in 1990. And then the gentleman, I don't know the gentleman's name on the right, but he was with the physical plant. So helped us open up the box.
And you mentioned that the banquet where the Secrets of the Century were initially collected was in the early 1940s. Why might this specific time be important in the creation of the time capsule?
So it was actually in later 1940s. So it happens in December of 1941 when they had the banquet. And they had planned that to celebrate the 50th anniversary of the college. And so that had been in the planning for a number of years. And they also celebrated Henry Bennett's birthday was also in December. And so they kind of combined the two with his birthday and then celebrating the anniversary of the college. But in 1941, 50th anniversary. And so it was a large banquet, large celebration. But the banquet happened just a few days after Pearl Harbor. And so that has, I think, an impact on the attendees. And then some of the things that get added to the box, the historic packet afterwards. And so I think you can see by the things people collected before that event happened. And then there's really a little bit of a change for those things that were collected after that momentous event of December 7th, 1941.
Yeah. What are some kinds of items that people place in the time capsule? I know you mentioned letters, but...
So many of the campus organizations would include histories for their organization. A number of photographs are included. There are things like Scout handbooks, Boy Scout handbooks. There are records that can be, played on record players. I think they just assumed that we'd have record players in 1990. There are mementos of various kinds. There are the Secrets of the Century, those little notes from individuals. It's really, and then the B.B. Chapman's classes had developed 3 volumes. So they're kind of like really elaborate scrapbooks that have been bound. And they're just filled with information from a variety of different organizations and individuals. So it was really a variety pack of stuff. There are some things in there like magazines from the time period. There were things produced by the college, extension publications, bulletins, many of the things which we have, but they also wanted to make sure, I guess, that in case something happened to ours, there would be this preserved copy in the time capsule. So.
Yeah. Well, let's take a look at some particular items of interest. If you're just joining us on the live stream here, I'm with David Peters today discussing the secrets of the Century Time Capsule and examining what was preserved in it. If you have any questions about this time capsule, please place them in the comment section and David will try to answer them on our show today. So our first item of interest is, as you mentioned, the volumes bound for our viewers. It's pretty hefty, pretty elaborate. We found some letters today to go through. If you would like to
want me to
look
start?
first.
So this is volume 3, and there's an index at the front of each volume. But in volume 3, there's an interesting letter, I think, from Chester Gould. And Chester Gould was an OAMC student early on when he was young. And he writes the letter to the class of 1991. So he's looking ahead 50 years later. This letter is written December 8th, 1941. So as I write this, the Congress of the United States is answering Japan's attack on our country by a declaration of war. Thus, after 24 years, we find ourselves in another world war. God alone knows what may transpire between now and the time you read this. All I can say is the spirit of the United States of America will not be downed. We carry on in the name of God and country, Chester Gould and Dick Tracy. And so it's a very nice letter from Chester Gould. And then he included 2 sections from his cartoon of Dick Tracy. And on the bottom one, it says, "To the class of 1991, with best wishes, Chester Gould." So it's just filled with surprises like that. So anyway, you have another one then.
I do have another one bookmarked in here. I found, while looking at these, I found a letter from the National Dairy Club. And we get a lot of comments on the Archives Facebook about people who miss the dairy bar. So it's a little throwback for that. But this letter was interesting because it was noted that it was written on December 7th, 1941. So these, monumental days that we look back on, the people that are living in them, it's almost like a regular day. And the letter from the Dairy Club, it's written from the president at the time. And they describe themselves to be very active on campus, one of the most active organizations on campus. Some of their activities of the club consists of an annual dairy breakfast the morning of homecoming day. And they also wrote that their members really enjoyed a spring picnic. So I thought that was interesting. And they're very long handwritten letters in here. So it just kind of is a testament to all the time and care that people put into working on this project, which is very interesting.
They have copies of programs, of events that they had. There's images in there. I was looking through it again just today, and there are images that I don't remember ever seeing. And so we needed something to make those things alive and available to people.
Oh. Let's see, some other particular items of interest. I know you said they had records that they definitely did not want us to forget. I'm sure one of those would be class schedules. And here's one of the class schedule booklets for those of you at home. This is very different from how we sign up for classes today since everything is online. Here you have to kind of flip through the summary of courses and really balance your time management skills, which I thought was funny. We have class schedules, and I know everyone's pretty familiar with Blue Books. I thought it was funny that they included their Blue Books in here.
So common exams or tests, where you required to write essays or whatever, you had Blue Books. There are also exams in there for many of the subject areas, so that you can see what kind of questions were on people's exams for different topics, different subjects.
Yeah, and there's even There's even a history exam in here. History of Western civilization. And one of the last questions on here, it's actually interesting. It wants their students to write about the growth of democracy, and it cuts off at the First World War. So it's interesting to see how exams have changed over time. You know, even in the 40s, they were testing over the World War and then didn't even know that they were about to live through the second. Mm-hmm. It's very interesting.
I'm sure these exams are probably a FERPA violation by now.
Let's see. So these items are obviously reflective of the time that they were in. What are some of your favorite highlights from this archive?
From this collection, I like, I guess, the everyday kinds of things, the schedules, the directories, the magazines. These are things that people would have been familiar with, commonly had available to them. And so just to get an impression for the kinds of things they were reading and looking at. I enjoy the pictures, from the time period. So, there'll be an organization and it'll be their picture from 1941. So I really, and then the notes that were included in the Secrets of the Century, I find those very meaningful. It's really kind of an eclectic batch of stuff. It's hard to pick out a favorite thing. I was a Boy Scout, so just seeing a Boy Scout manual from, 1916 or something.
I was going to say there is one hiding in here somewhere.
Yeah. So there's plenty of things that are, I think, of interest. And how that Boy Scout manual got in there, I don't know, but for some reason somebody thought it was important. So
yeah, there were a lot of Boy Scout manuals and cards and collections and a lot of rule books as well, mm-hmm. which was funny. It's a lot of, I don't want to forget the rules. Yeah. Thank you all for joining us again. If you've just tuned in, I'm with Head of Archives, David Peters, discussing the history of time capsules here at OSU. Feel free to leave questions or comments in the comment section to keep the conversation going. So what are some challenges to creating or preserving time capsules?
So one of the things you need to decide early on is, are you planning on 10 years, 25 years, 50 years, 100 years? But, planning well in advance of the time that this material is going to be stored is critical. One of the things I recommend to anyone is do not bury your time capsule. That's one of the biggest problems. People will bury things, and invariably many of the items will either at some point be exposed to water or just decay underground. So you try to avoid burying a time capsule. And that was a common thing to do. People thought, you just bury something and, dig it up, 50 years later. Well, it doesn't always work out very well. So another challenge is if you have mixed materials in there, you want to keep them separated in some way. And so newspapers are a very acidic paper. And so you don't want to put your very acidic newspaper right next to your photographs, because those acids will bleed into your photographs and then damage your photographs. And so it's good if you have mixed kinds of materials is to separate those out. So put your newspapers in one folder and the photographs in another folder, but to separate them into similar types of material. Another thing is, with technology changing so rapidly, I think it's always good to have a paper copy of something. And so even if it's just describing what's on that piece of technology, that flash drive or whatever it is, that CD, that 8-track tape, at least to describe it so people in the future have some idea of what that was. Because there's no guarantee that they'll have the equipment to operate that, whether the software or hardware necessary to open up those files. And so if you at least have a paper document that describes what it is, or a backup on paper. Paper is still a very reliable format to store things in. So, I'd much rather have 10 photographs, photographs in a folder than 10 image files on a flash drive, because I don't know if they'll be able to open that in the future. And so just trying to think, the time period, the time capsule is going to be secluded or away is critical, and then separate the materials. And then you really need to put some thought into it. Whose stories are going to be preserved. And when you first begin planning it, you probably set out criteria. But then at a certain point, you can say, okay, now who are we leaving out? Whose stories are we not including that we should? Because invariably, some groups or some individuals are forgotten, and you want to do the best you can to make sure that it's as inclusive as possible, that everyone had a chance to participate, whatever group is being represented in that time capsule.
Yeah. Last month we touched on difficulties in the preservation process in our live stream about the history of recording at OSU. If you're interested in hearing that conversation, feel free to check it out on our Facebook or the library's YouTube channel. It was just kind of something we brought up last week, and you see it again. There's a lot of just difficulties in preservation. But we also have some comments from our viewers today. Bonnie says that we'd have to add a 100th homecoming t-shirt to the time capsule if we were to do one today. And Nina says that she would include paper maps of campus in the time capsule. And that reminded me that we do have a paper map it's listed to be hand-drawn maps from 1904.
Mm-hmm.
For those of you looking at home, campus looks a little different here than it does today. But that was something that they would have thought of.
Can I point out something on the map?
Yeah.
So here is the central campus, and there is Old Central. And I believe that is the only building still in existence from this map. And so there used to be a drive. This is where Hester is now, and that's where Knobloch comes up. And there used to be a circular drive that went in front of Old Central. And so I think it was Harry Hoke, HGH, but I think it was Harry Hoke who drew this map.
Yeah. That was very detailed sketch. And Guy says today that he would add a list of current events for sure to a time capsule, which would be very beneficial to kind of get an insight of what the daily life looks like today. And there's a question from Nina. She asks, what was the most interesting nugget of information you learned from this specific time capsule?
Significant nugget? Wow. Well, I think I didn't realize the importance or impact that B.B. Chapman had in this whole process. I knew about the historic packet and the secrets of century. I kind of knew about the general overview. But B.B. Chapman, who was on the faculty here in history, really was instrumental in both the concept for doing a time capsule and then inspiring his classes in history to serve as really the development committee for this, and then getting buy-in from really many of the leaders of campus to participate in this. And so just the role, I think it's not specific information, but it's the role that B.B. Chapman played in the development of all of this.
And it's great that he had his classes to be able to participate in this. And, being on a college campus, there's so many rich ideas. And I think that has not gone away. That's kind of reflected today with how classes, last year during the pandemic, they were able to write diaries for their assignments for history classes and talk about their experiences in the pandemic. So it's really interesting how he pulled on his students and the campus environment and how we can still be able to do that today.
Yeah. He really was emphasizing applied history. And you mentioned the COVID diaries. We do have some of the COVID diaries that students provided to the archives. So yeah, we have some of those.
Yeah. And Justin says that he would add pictures of all the big events on campus, like homecoming and Bedlam. For sure. Those would be really interesting because a lot of the pictures in these archives are, we talked about the scrapbooks and there's a lot of portraits and things like that, but it would be interesting to see how campus has changed over the years and how many people go to these huge events like homecoming and Bedlam, which would be fun.
I think you also need to include some of the lesser attended events too. Sometimes things that are just in their development now, but then in 50 years they may be a huge thing. And so if you can show the source of the original, well, that was just a little gathering, and now it's huge. You never can tell.
Yeah. And Guy says in the comments that he would want to put a Bitcoin in a time capsule as well, which would be interesting. I don't know if we can put that on paper, but I'm sure we could find a way. So a question from Justin, a lot of questions today. Question from Justin is, what do you love most about preserving the past?
The stories that we can tell in the future, and hopefully new perspectives that we can gain from knowing what people have experienced in the past. So I think that's really just the reason I'm involved with archives, are preserving stories for the future, and in our case, preserving the story of Oklahoma State University. So.
Yeah. And a question from Bonnie, you touched on this a little bit, but whose stories were omitted from the Secrets of the Century time capsule?
So you have to remember, this is 1941, so we're still a segregated community and a segregated campus. So there are no African-American students here. There are still very few ethnic students of any kind, whether it's Hispanic, Native American. And so, their stories aren't included because they don't have the advantage of attending college. And so I think it's important to remember the challenges that many of these populations faced at this time. And since they weren't a part of the campus, their stories aren't included. So I think things like that we always have to be mindful of.
Yeah, for sure. And a question from Nina today is, what are the boxes behind you?
All right, so if you remember the first pictures we were looking at, but this is the box for the Secrets of the Century, and it was pried open, kind of like a can opener, but there were 3 panels that they used to pry it open to get to the secrets. And then this box, and these are all very stable. This is a galvanized metal box, and then this is a copper box. And so all of the material from the scrapbooks and the Boy Scout manuals, all of this, the records, all of this go into this box. And so the Secrets of the Century were in there, and then all this other material was put in there. And this was the top of the box, and so it must have sat flat this way. And then when they opened it up, once again, they just cut around, but it was sealed up. You could see where they sealed it. Yeah. And for its first about 10, 12 years, this container was stored on campus somewhere. I'm not sure where they kept it. And then when this library was completed, 1953, January 1953, at the front, on the south facade, on the west side of the main doors, there's a marker, and in that wall, this container was placed in 1953 to be opened then in 1990. So those are 2 containers.
You can tell how carefully they were in extracting everything, and there's no real damage to any of the stuff that we were looking at today. They did a good job.
They did an excellent job. They didn't bury it, and that was a secure environment, and there was no water leaks, and it was sealed. They did an excellent job.
Yeah. And Joyce says today that she would include before and after pictures of when Steve Dobbs was hired to work on the campus landscape. That man's achievements should be commemorated. The change is amazing.
And I think it'd be fascinating to look at, the plantings that they're doing now to capture that, and then to see those same areas. It's a common thing to take a picture from where something occurred 50 years earlier, and see how it looks today. And so I think it'd be fascinating to capture all of that today of what Steve Dobbs and his crew are doing around campus with landscaping, capture it, and then, in 50 years from now, have those GIS points, and then, get a new vision of what happened with many of those plantings. So,
yeah. Olivia chimes in from home and says, "This is so cool. We definitely need to include something about campus life during COVID in a capsule, like an OSU mask." I agree. Those little Pistol Pete ones, they need to be remembered.
the masks, the signage, there's a variety of the cards, when you got your vaccination card, there's all kinds of memorabilia that you include and would be critical at this time so people can understand, whatever time period from in the future, what was happening.
Yeah. I don't know if you have more to say about, we live through these things and so many people have masks and so many people have their vaccination cards. I don't know when you would be able to put the stop on that. How many do we need for a time capsule? Or
you just need one, at least one or two representative samples.
Yeah.
You don't need everybody's in there, but at least a representative sample. And then if you can provide a little contextual statement, many people wore masks, many people didn't wear masks. What kind of masks did they wear? Did masks change over time? Were there different styles? But provide some context for in the future, so they don't make assumptions like that. Well, that's the only kind of mask they had. Well, no, we had a variety of different kinds of masks. So yeah.
And a question from Bonnie is: are there any time capsules waiting to be opened in the archives now?
So we don't have any. Well, there's another time capsule on campus, and we may talk about this in the future, but there's another time capsule. The Spears School did an excellent job developing a time capsule as they were preparing to go into their new facility just east of us here. And they put a lot of effort into it. They developed, I think, a very good time capsule. It's stored perfectly. If you're ever in Spears, it's in the basement level, but it's under a stairwell, and it's very secure. And they used a special metal and sealing and gas. I mean, it's incredible. But they collected a variety of different materials. So that time capsule is waiting to be opened. I think it was a 50-year time span on that. But what they did is they provided some of the duplicate things. So if they got two of something, one went in the time capsule, and they sent us another version, another copy of that. And so we have kind of a secondary copy of what's in that time capsule in the archives. And we've got, ours isn't sealed up, it's in boxes, and we're not going to open it up or make it available to anybody until their capsule is opened. But so they have a kind of a backup plan just in case something happens. Or we have, in case something happens to our stuff, we know the original stuff is in their time capsule. But, they still discover things occasionally. They'll, like when they're tearing down a building or something, and someone would have put something in a can or it's just, I kind of like those random time capsules too. And then sometimes they would put things in the cornerstone where they laid the cornerstone. There'd be mementos placed there. So there are other time capsules, and there's really no register of all the time capsules that have been placed on campus. So we'll just discover them when we find them.
And if anyone were to happen upon a time capsule, what do you think they should do?
So if they can, try to find someone with a little expertise in before they just open it up. Maybe we'd love to help them, assist them. That's happened on several occasions, so that it's cared for, so that they don't just pull things out. Sometimes the paper will be very brittle, so you need to be very careful handling it. So I'd have them contact someone in the museum world or the archives world to assist them in actually, opening up and pulling the things out of there if they think it truly is a time capsule. Well, and sometimes, like this metal, I mean, you've got to be able to, get through that somehow. So you don't want to just take a blowtorch to it because you might create some damage. So.
Yeah, we have to be careful with this metal too. I don't know if everyone at home can tell, but some of these sides that are pried off, if you don't want to get caught in that, you don't want to get another tetanus shot.
There are sharp edges.
Sharp edges over there. Well, how would you feel about creating another time capsule here at OSU? And if you could personally put anything in one, what would it be?
I think time capsules are fun. I think they're rewarding. They are an awful lot of work. To do them well is a lot of work. And so it needs to be a group effort, and you need to have resources available to you to make it happen. But I encourage people to consider those kinds of things because it just makes the future kind of an adventure, and especially when people project towards what they think the future is going to be like, or they give details about what's like now that people have no concept of it until we get to the future. What I would like to put in a time capsule, So I've been privy to a number of stories in the archives, and some of them are not well known, and some of them I guess you would call secrets. And so I would like to write stories, probably revealing some of these secrets, as long as I know the time capsule isn't going to be open for 50 years or whatever. I don't want to be open next year, but if it's going to be 50 years, there might be some stories that would reveal secrets about the institution that I think would be interesting for the future generations to read.
Yeah. And we have got one more question before we head out today, but this question is from Justin, and he asks, can my friends and I do a mini time capsule ourselves at home? Do you have, I guess, any more advice on some amateurs at home, on advising them on what to do?
So, Justin, I would work with somebody to find a secure container, because you want to keep moisture out. That's the most critical one, and you want it to be fairly stable. So glass, could be a challenge. You don't want to store it in the garage or the attic or underground. So you have to think about how long you want to have it and where you're going to store it. But it might be fun just to do a little time capsule that maybe is 5 years or 10 years. Put things in there, and say we're going to open this up when we graduate or when our children, whatever. But yeah, you want to keep things cool and dry. In a stable environment. Have fun with it. You can always contact me, Justin, and maybe we can give you some direction.
Yeah. They did a good job of preserving a lot of the letters and the secrets of the century, and we do have some of the letters digitized on the special collections tab on the OK State Library website. But I think one of my favorite things that they put in the time capsule was like letters to their future grandchildren or children, and talking about, there's always like this great sentimentality that lasts over the years. And I think people really cared about OSU then, and people really care about OSU now. And it was very nice to kind of crack this open today and look at how people of the past were excited about the future.
I think especially with the Secrets of the Century, this is right after Pearl Harbor. And the concern you can see in some of their comments, but also the confidence, that they believe that we'll get through this. We've gotten through challenges before, and we'll get through this next one. We don't know necessarily how or why these things are happening, but we will find a way to proceed. And so I'm really that's what impressed me was the concern but confidence that people had that we will prevail somehow.
For sure. Do you have any more closing comments today about Secrets of the Century or time capsules at OSU?
No, I appreciate all the questions and comments from people. We really enjoy that. And also just let people know this is October's Archives Month. And so I think it's very appropriate for Archives Month that we opened up a time capsule and kind of shared some of the experiences that people had creating this and then opening up and seeing what they saved. So.
Yeah. Well, thank you, David, for joining me today on Archives Live and being willing to dive deeper into this topic. I hope we all feel closer to our history after examining these objects preserved for us through time capsules. I know we have our Secrets of the Century digital collection located on the library's website under Unique Collections. So if you're interested in that, I would recommend checking it out. And of course, thank you to you, our viewers, for joining us and commenting or asking questions. Don't forget to check out all of the archives videos on OState TV and YouTube. The website will be listed at the end of this program. Thanks again, everyone, for watching. We'll see you next time on Archives Live.